You're listening to The South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast by Ohio State fans for Ohio State fans on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Welcome back to The South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast by Ohio State fans for Ohio State fans from the West Coast. I'm your host, Zach Moore. Today is Wednesday, October 27th, and I'm very happy to be joined once again by fellow South Stands contributor Paige Van Horn from Denver. PVH, how's it going, my friend?
It's going well, buddy. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, my friend. We are also joined by contributor Chad Plummer from Cleveland. CP, what's the word from the 216?
What up, boys? All good in the 216, man. Just it's nice to actually sit down and not have to use my brain for work. So this is great.
All right. Well, we'll try not to tax you too much, CP, on this call. Of course, we are here to preview Ohio State's prime time matchup with number 20 Penn State in the Horseshoe this Saturday night. The game is a 7:30 p.m. Eastern kick on ABC. The line as it stands right now is Ohio State minus 18.5. I don't believe it's moved since I last looked at it. The over-under is 60. Ohio State is 22-13 all-time against Penn State, and they are winners of the last four between these two schools, including a 38-25 win in an empty Beaver Stadium last year. Penn State's last win in the series was 2016 in Happy Valley, and the last time the Nittany Lions won in Columbus was 2011, so 10 years ago, fellas. And that was, of course, the disastrous Tattoo Gate season with Luke Fickell as interim head coach. Penn State won that game 20-14. Now, this game was supposed to be one of two top 10 showdowns in the Big Ten this weekend. Michigan and Michigan State would be the other. But Penn State failed to live up to its end of the bargain, losing last week in 9 periods of overtime to lowly Illinois in Happy Valley, no less. The final on that one was 20-18. It was Penn State's second straight loss. They dropped a very winnable game in Iowa City to the Hawkeyes on October 9th and now sit at number 20 in the AP poll. So the big question for Penn State coming into this game is what percentage of Sean Clifford will they get? And Clifford was playing extremely well before going down in that Iowa game. Penn State had a 17-3 lead in that game before Clifford's injury. And really that injury, fellas, and that moment when he went down appears to have been a really unfortunate turning point in Penn State's season. You know, they ended up losing that game to the Hawkeyes, as we know. Clifford returned to action last week, but it was a shell of himself against Illinois. Now, James Franklin said yesterday he expects Clifford to be 100% for Ohio State. I don't know. I mean, I think that might be more wishful thinking on Franklin's part than anything else. But if Clifford can regain his form against the Buckeyes, Penn State might have a shot at making this a game. Certainly in the folks in the desert, I don't know. They have doubts about that. As I've said, they're giving Penn State 18.5 points in this game. Now, Penn State fans will tell you the strength of this team is its defense, namely the secondary with Joey Porter Jr. and Tariq Castro Fields at corner and Jaquan Brisker at safety. Pro Football Focus rates that unit 6th nationally in coverage, and Penn State ranks 15th nationally in pass defense, giving up only 178 yards per game. So I think we're in for a good strength-on-strength matchup between that secondary and the Ohio State receivers. Linebacker Ellis Brooks is another player to watch on that defense. He's Penn State's leading tackler. Finally, defensive tackle PJ Mustipher, who Penn State people will tell you is a very important cog in that defense, especially in stopping the run, is injured. I believe he's been lost for the season and will not play against Ohio State. Now, Mustipher leaves a gaping hole in the middle of that defense that Illinois running backs Chase Brown and Joshua McCrary were able to exploit to the tune of 365 yards rushing and 6.4 yards per carry last week. I mean, that's definitely an area to watch as TreVeyon Henderson comes into Saturday averaging almost 9 yards per game for Ohio State. So we might get a heavy workload for Henderson in that game. Okay, Paige, I'm going to kick this to you. Now, coming off Ohio State's dominant performance against Indiana last week, how are you feeling about Ohio State heading into this matchup with Penn State?
I feel so good. It almost feels like it's a trap game. Right?
Yeah.
There's no way I wouldn't even take the Buckeyes with Plummer's money minus. Like there's just because, you know, if you've watched the Big Ten in the last 10 years, especially this rivalry, Penn State is by far our toughest competition.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it appears that these two directions are going in polar opposite ways. I mean, the Buckeyes you couldn't even find a thing to complain about against Indiana. And I watched the overtime of the Illinois game. I'll never get that fucking time back. It was the most painful thing. And okay, so start off. I had no idea that they had this new 2-point conversion.
Okay.
No idea. And it wasn't like they were scoring, right? It wasn't like each team was punching it in from the 2-yard line. It was just so pathetic. I couldn't even stand it. And it just kept going on and on and on. And I had someplace to be. And I actually ended up watching it. And the other thing is, I didn't even know that Brett Bielema was even alive. And then they said that Illinois lost to some school that I kid you not, I had never even heard of, like UCI Cristobal University or something just insane. So let's just start there. So everything in the world points to a Buckeye blowout. It really should be, but I think you need to be careful because Penn State plays us so tough. They'll give us a good shot. If Clifford's truly dinged and can't, go, then it could get really ugly. If not, I expect it to be, a typical Ohio State Penn State game. I was also surprised to hear you say that they hadn't won in the shoe in 10 years. That seems like they've given us fits. So right. I'm expecting more of the same. But the Buckeyes, they're rolling. I think, defensive problems are not completely solved, but man, are they greatly improved. What can you say about the offense? Mm-hmm. What can you say about every little aspect of them, the offensive line, which I think people are not giving them due credit for? Like, Stroud has just been killing it. Right. Dude, he has all day back there. Yeah. There's no one even remotely close to him. And I think the offensive line is a big, big factor moving forward. Oh, yeah. So I love the Buckeyes' chances. Everything tells me they're going to roll. I'm going to take Penn State because I think it's a trap game.
All right. All right. By the way, I believe it's the University of Texas San Antonio Roadrunners. That's who Illinois lost to in their opener.
How's that possible?
Yeah.
Chad, how about you? Since going back, looking at the performance against IU, obviously Ohio State dominant in that game, how are you feeling about the Buckeyes heading into this matchup with Penn State?
Snore fest.
Oh, okay. So pretty confident.
Seriously, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be your typical Penn State Ohio State game. And what the fuck is up with James Franklin this week? Yeah, we're going to be going into the big house. Like, I mean, that guy's a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be, whether Clifford, I mean, I wish Clifford would play, and I wish actually he was like 100% healthy. So our defense, we could see at least where we actually are as far as our defensive schemes, where we're looking now with Barnes making the calls. But I don't think that's probably going to be the case. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just going to be, they can't stop us. They're getting, what are they averaging? 3.5 yards per carry. So, I mean, it's crazy. Our offense, I mean, nobody can argue that we have the most explosive offense in college football. I think it's as good, if not better, than Alabama's was last year. Mm-hmm. If it's not right now, it will be at the end of this season. I think it's pretty damn close right now. And like Paige alluded to, the offensive line, I mean, they're beasts up there. If Aaron Mumford's going to go down as probably the best offensive lineman to play at Ohio State.
Wow, even better than Orlando Pace. Even better than Orlando Pace? You taking Mumford over Pace?
I love OP, man, but I'm telling you, I maybe, you know what?
Better than Jim Stillwagon?
Yeah, he's better than Jim Stillwagon. Sorry, Bradley. But yeah, so I mean, I don't think this is going to be the typical. And I'm one that always, it's a Penn State Ohio State game. They always play as tight. But I just think there's like disarray going up there, and College Park, Franklin just hired Jimmy Sexton. Supposedly it was over the summer. I mean, that guy represents 11 of the 12 SEC coaches. That guy's like, he gets it done. Like, and that just comes out this week. Then he proceeds to say, like, we're going into the big house, blah, blah, blah. This, so they're all losing their minds up there.
Yeah.
It's going to be a blowout.
Yeah.
Night game, all Scarlet unis, first time in history. And it's going to be a Scarlet out in the stadium. It's just going to be an ass kicking.
Wow. Okay. So, by the way, how do you guys feel about those all Scarlets? I'm not sure how I feel about them. I guess I'm going to have to see them in action. You like them, CP? How about you, PVH?
I like the aesthetics. I like the look.
Yeah.
I bet they're going to look really sweet under the light.
Yeah.
I like them. I think someone had put out they should have the black helmets with them or something like that. Would be really cool. But
that would be cool.
Yeah.
I think that stuff's good. I think it's important, right? I mean, I know the traditionalists get all bent out of shape about it, but I mean, look at Oregon, their program's built on, Nike.
Kids love it.
And believe it or not, that's huge for recruits, man. I mean,
totally.
That list of recruits that are coming into the shoe on Saturday night, I mean, they love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm anxious to see what they do look like on the field, though.
Yeah, me too. I got to see them in action, and maybe I guess I haven't really decided yet, but I'm a little torn. I just want to see what they look like. I guess it will be kind of a stark contrast to those all whites for Penn State. So it will look pretty cool. I think.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah. That's going to actually be pretty sweet. All white versus
Well, it's good to get we haven't had a chance to catch up, the three of us, and I just wanted to get your kind of your overall impressions of Ohio State since the Indiana game. We didn't have a chance to break that down, the three of us, and it seems that both of you and I agree with you, feeling very confident heading into this game. And despite the fact that Penn State, and I agree with you, Paige, and I've been saying it ad nauseum on this podcast for years, that Penn State has been our toughest competition in the conference since James Franklin, took the helm. So, and I even still, I'm reluctant to pick a blowout. We'll get to our score predictions later, just because maybe I'm just superstitious, but things don't seem to, Paige, you made reference to this. These two teams are on like bullet trains speeding in the opposite direction. And you've got Ohio State in full ascension, and you have Penn State. Since they had that 17-3 lead against Iowa in that game, Clifford goes down. It's been a swift and steady decline for that program since then. And Chad, you made reference to it yesterday in James Franklin's press conference. He seemed oddly kind of absent-minded and not all there. He twice referred to Ohio State as Illinois, and he referred to Ohio Stadium as the big house. I think that's what you were talking about. So Franklin doesn't seem all there. You also mentioned too, Chad, that he recently hired a new agent. There's all these rumors swirling about him potentially being a candidate either for USC and or LSU. And, you look at the injuries, you look at the talent makeup of both of these rosters, and all at the statistically both where these teams sit, all signs seem to point to perhaps a blowout for the very first time in about 5 years. I think it's about 5 years since Ohio State has really kind of blown Penn State out. All right. Well, I'm curious. What are you each most looking forward to in this game? It could be a player that you're looking forward to watching. Could be a matchup. Could be scheme related, coaching related. Paige, I'm going to kick this back to you. What are you most looking forward to watching in this game?
I think the offense against their defense, right? They do have a good defense. They always play good defense.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to learn a whole heck of a lot on the defensive side of the ball, stopping them. I don't think.
I agree.
Clifford, I didn't see him get hurt, but without him, they're going to be really, really, in a tough way to try and do anything against us. So I think the defense will perform well. I just want to see this offense keep rolling. It'd be interesting, what kind of game plan Ryan Day comes up with, but just keep that machine going. It's truly like just frightening the amount of weapons that they have. I mean, it's that old adage, you could take something away. I don't know what you try and take away from this team. I mean, the receivers, Ruckert is now a factor, right?
Oh yeah.
We all, Henderson, that guy, not only is he quick as hell and wiggly as hell, man, he breaks tackles like
powerful.
Like Ryan Williams. It's insane, the package of that guy. So I just want to see the offense continue to roll against a better defense, probably what they've faced these last few games. And going back to watching the Illinois Penn State game, they just ran the ball down their throat.
Yeah, they did.
That guy wasn't passing, and I have no idea who the quarterback is of Illinois, but they just stuffed the ball down Penn State's throat, and really Penn State couldn't stop them. And in a lot of respects, Illinois deserved to win that game. They didn't win it on a fluke. They went in there and beat Penn State. So, I think that's probably where we might learn something, and what I'm most looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, just to your point, and I had mentioned it at the top, Illinois finished with 357 yards rushing on the day, and Brown, their starting tailback, and Brown and McCrary, their two top backs, combined for, Brown, he went for 223 on 33 carries, McCrary 142 on 24 carries. So, yeah, if there is a vulnerability there with that defense, I think it certainly appears to be in the run game. Chad, how about you? What are you most looking forward to watching in this game?
I'm looking forward to the country being able to see the Ohio State offense on national television, prime time. That's what I'm most looking forward to. I mean, I really can't pinpoint a player that I want to watch. You know what I mean? It's
sure.
You could just go down the list. I mean, on that offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm really excited to see Steel Chambers. Steel Chambers is balling out. I mean, that kid is, playing very well. He's probably our best linebacker. I guess I'm what I'm looking forward to is not being disappointed.
Yeah. I'm with you on Steel Chambers. It makes sense. I'm with you on Steel Chambers. I think he needs to get more snaps. I think he appears to be the only linebacker that kind of plays downhill and instinctively. He had a play last week against Indiana where he tackled their back with one arm. He ripped the ball loose. Indiana fell on it, but that play stood out to me, and he's had several like it. He keeps standing out on film in a way at linebacker that we haven't seen in a while. So I agree with you. I want to see more of him.
Mitchell played ball last week though too.
Well, I think Chambers stands to steal snaps from Mitchell. I think he plays a weak side linebacker. So I think if Chambers is going to get more playing time, and it's going to be at Mitchell's expense. But no, I'm with you. I want to see more from Steel Chambers. He's one of Ohio State's top graded defenders, according to Pro Football Focus, in the top 10 defensively overall in their defensive grades. He's been a really pleasant surprise. So for you, both of you, it's the offense, and that's totally understandable, right? I mean, that really is the story of this team. But for me, I'll go to the defensive side. I do want to see continued improvement with this defense. And Paige and Chad, you've already mentioned, look, what can we realistically learn about the defense in this game? And I agree with that, right? You've got an injured quarterback with an offense that was probably going to be limited anyway, with a quarterback in Clifford who has limited arm talent even when he's healthy. But I want to see from Ohio State what any good defense should do against a limited offense with an injured quarterback, which is to snuff out any hope that this will be a game and from the jump. And I also want to see that defense really kind of really respond to the energy in that stadium. I mentioned this to you guys over text. I want to see Ohio State get out of the gates a little quicker at home in a big game. Sometimes I feel like the opponent feeds more off the energy than Ohio State. They kind of feed off the atmosphere and seem more energized by it than Ohio State. So I want to see that from Ohio State, out of the gates quicker in a big game and in front of our home fans. And I want to see that defense dominate, right? Look, last week, Illinois held Penn State to 227 yards of total offense, and that includes 9 frames of overtime. 227 yards of total offense, right? So I would expect at least that from the Ohio State defense, right? I would think this defense should be at least be able to replicate that. I want to see 200 yards or less of total offense. I'm setting that's where I'm setting the standard for this defense. I want to see that front seven living in the PSU backfield. I want to see that secondary all over Jahan Dotson. I mean, look, Dotson's really their only playmaker, right? So anybody but that guy, right? I expect they're going to key on Dotson. I'd be very disappointed if he has a big game because he's really the only guy out there that's going to be able to make plays for them. So that's what I'm going to be looking at.
Z, not trying to look ahead because that's right. But, I really, really wish that Clifford was playing in this game because, I mean, if you look ahead over the next few weeks, there's not one team that we play that really has this dynamic offense.
Yeah.
I mean, Michigan certainly doesn't. They have a great defense. Michigan State certainly doesn't. They have a great, defense. But, it's just like I wanted to see where we are before we get to, the end of the season, how far along we've actually come.
And I don't think we're going to get that test until the playoffs, should we get there. No. I mean, I just don't think the Big Ten has – the Big Ten, really all those teams, Penn State, Michigan, Michigan State, Iowa, they're all – even Wisconsin are all kind of the same flavor or slightly different flavor of the same kind of brand. I don't know. I mean, good defense, limited quarterback play. I guess, okay in the run game. I just don't know if Ohio State's going to get a real test until it gets out of conference in the playoff and faces an Alabama or a Georgia. But, for now, with the opponents that are in front of them, do what a good defense is supposed to do, which is just snuff out any hope, right? From the jump, completely dominate. And that's what I want to see. And I think this defense is capable of that.
Nice work on that Indiana pod there, Z.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
And I will say this. I will give, because I was at the game last week. Bloomington is a cool-ass campus, man.
Is it?
It is very cool. The tailgating scene at Bloomington is off the hook, man. It's legit.
All right.
And the bars, we just had a blast. I mean, it sucked that the rain, came down.
Yeah, it looked like it was coming down pretty good.
47. Yeah, it was beautiful all day. And then, right when we were walking into the stadium, started that misting. But, it was 44-7 at halftime. So it was really like I was going to sit there for another 2 quarters.
Yeah, I was going to say, dude, what were you out of? Mid-second quarter, you were out of that place? Come on, be honest.
Oh, dude. Kramer and I just, peeled we were out of there, bro. But the fans were actually pretty cool. We were having a good time, Raz going back and forth. But yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to Bloomington. That campus is legit.
Nice. Yeah, it looks like kind of a nice place to watch a game too. It's a smaller stadium. It sounds like a little more an intimate venue, but it looks like a nice place to watch a game. So, Paige, you'd mentioned the Penn State defense. The question is, are they good enough to really, hold this offense in check? I mean, right now, total defense, they're 26 in the country. Defensive yards per play, I think I mentioned it earlier, they're 5th. So pretty good at limiting, opposing offenses to 4.31 yards per play. They're good at pass defense, 15th in the country. But I think if they're going to have any hope of really slowing down this Ohio State offense, I think you got to get after CJ Stroud. And while Penn State, is good in certain areas, a top 25 defense to be sure in certain areas. They have good players. We know that. They've got future NFL players. They're not great at getting after the quarterback. Only 72nd nationally in sacks. I was looking at the PFF grades for their pass rush, 48th nationally in pass rush, which is, it's okay. It's not great. By comparison, Ohio State is 25th nationally in pass rush. So not a super dynamic, overpowering pass rush. And they're going up against what might be the best offensive line in the country. I mean, Stroud's been sacked, I believe, 5 times in 6 games. So, as we head toward our score predictions here, I think that's something to weigh. I think Penn State's going to have to get after Stroud. They're going to have to rattle him, and they're going to have to create turnovers. I think at least 2 turnovers to equalize this game, to have a chance in it. So let's move over to score predictions, boys, if you're ready to do that. Paige, why don't I start with you? Why don't you give me your score prediction?
Hey, look, everything about this game screams blowout, right? I mean, I didn't even realize, and I guess I forgot, right? They were coming off a bye against Illinois.
That's right.
That's just not. and
that's what's even worse.
Oh, God.
And, we've talked about Ohio State has definitely turned things around. And, I believe that Franklin is probably interested in a different job. I think that's a podcast in and of itself, whether or not USC or LSU are better jobs than Penn State. I don't know. I mean, maybe money-wise, that always dictates, but I wonder,
from a talent perspective, for sure. I mean, I think
you're
going to have access to much more talent, both at USC, I think, and then LSU.
Well, again, so
I think he's going to get paid no matter what.
Chad?
He's setting himself up. I think he hired that Jimmy Sexton because regardless, he's going to get paid if he goes to LSU or USC
or get a raise.
Pretty much putting Penn State on hey, listen, you're going to give me a buyout clause and you're going to give me a big ass contract. And then he'll just it's pretty much going to have his pick. But I wouldn't take USC.
I don't know about that, though. I don't know about that. I mean, look, he just lost to fucking Illinois at home. I mean, what's he going to point to? Right? He lost a winnable game at Iowa. What's he going to say to Penn State? Like, you better give me a raise. Penn State's like, there's the door, buddy.
Right now.
There's the door, buddy.
I get it, but he's got some big time recruits and he's got a good class right now. So I mean,
we'll see. I mean, look, he's got to win this game. I think. I don't think he can get his ass handed to him by Ohio State on the heels of of an embarrassing loss to Illinois and then losing a winnable game that his team was in command of at Iowa. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Penn State or LSU will hire him away. I just don't know that he can turn around to his current employer and say, "You better give me a raise or else." Given his most recent track record, and also coming off last season, right, where they lost they were 0-5 to start, and they had a strong finish, but super disappointing. Anyway, podcast for another day, Paige, as you said.
Takes the Penn State job if he does leave.
Yeah, well, podcast for another day, as Paige had mentioned. James Franklin's employment prospects. Paige, kick it to you. What's your prediction for this game?
I'm going to go 42-28 Buckeyes. I just don't think. Just past precedent, right? We don't cover. And so, part of me wants to go 42-2 and just call the blowout, but I'm not going to do it. I think it's a trap. So I'm going to say that it's a little closer than we think.
Wow. And you like Penn State to put up 28 points in that game. That's a lot of offense for this Penn State offense.
Well, they've done it before, right?
I'll give you 10 points right now and say they don't even score 18.
What? Say that again.
If they score 28 points on this defense, then we're not even anywhere near being done.
that would be a bad sign. I mean, if we did give up 28 points to this offense, this Penn State offense, they're averaging 18 points a game in Big Ten play, 27 per game overall. So 27 per game overall, that's 79th in scoring offense nationally. But since they've entered Big Ten play, only 18 points per game. But anyway, Paige, you think they put up 28 on this Ohio State defense, and you like the Buckeyes to win by 2 touchdowns but not cover.
They can always get a cheapie at the end, which they did last year.
That's true.
Player, and you called it.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good
with
point.
One guy that can beat you, and I think if there's one thing to think, that would take that guy away, right? Like I want to see Seven Banks or Burke or Cam Brown just shut him down. Like that would, that's something to look for on Saturday. And trust me, everything in my head tells me this is not going to be close. There's a lot of factors that should, make you think that, but
right.
I don't know. I think, Penn State, for whatever reasons, gives us fits. I think it's important for Ohio State to roll, though, too, right? Let's get this train moving.
Mm-hmm.
We are clearly the class of the Big Ten. The East is nowhere near as good as we were talking about 2 weeks ago, or the pundits are talking about. Ohio State needs to just keep the accelerator down, kick the living shit out of this team and everyone else that's in front of them, because they should. No one can compete with them. The ceiling, you said it a few weeks ago, Zach, the ceiling on this team is through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
The offenses in the Big Ten, again, it's a podcast for another day. How can they be that bad? I'm not quite sure.
All right. So you've got
Penn crush it. They should.
All right, 42-28 Ohio State, and you like Penn State maybe to come in, play with some pride, after these 2 disappointing performances, and they do still have some good players. They got a lot of NFL guys too. So, okay, 42-28 Ohio State is your prediction. Chad, what's yours?
56-13.
56-13.
12 for my boy PVH for the deuce with the safety in there somewhere, but I got to go 13. 56-13 Buckeyes roll on national TV, baby.
Wow. Okay. Well, that would be the highest point total for Ohio State since the 2013 game. When that was also in the shoe. We put up 63 on them. And that would be a true blowout.
And I'm, and like I said earlier, this is always a game, you know what I mean? No matter what, they always play as tight.
Right.
But this year, college football is so crazy and things are just anyone can beat anybody, I think, this year, but this is why we break the chain. The Buckeyes roll 56-13.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned previously, right? Penn State, Ohio State are teams speeding on bullet trains in opposite directions. I mean, Ohio State right now is third in the 24/7 team talent composite. Penn State is 16th. Right now, Ohio State is as healthy as they've been since the season started, whereas, well documented, Penn State is dealing with some key injuries that are having major impacts, on them right now. And I think Ohio State has the coaching edge. And I think last year, Ohio State really flirted with its first blowout of Penn State since 2015. They beat Penn State by 4 touchdowns in the shoe in 2015. But in last year's game, they kind of let Penn State hang around. They scored a couple. Penn State did a couple garbage time touchdowns there late in the fourth quarter to make the final margin look a little closer than it actually was. But anyone who watched the game saw that Ohio State was really in command for all 4 quarters. I think on Saturday night the Buckeyes finished the job. I agree with you, Chad, and I'm going against my instinct, Paige, because I share that instinct. Penn State.
I love it.
Penn State has been the most competitive Big Ten opponent for Ohio State since Franklin took the helm, and I typically feel uneasy predicting an Ohio State blowout in this game, but just all signs seem to be pointing to an Ohio State blowout. Hopefully I don't eat these words. Maybe this is the ultimate okey doke from Franklin and Penn State. Maybe they've lulled us to sleep and they're going to come into the shoe on Saturday night and shock the Buckeyes. But to me, all signs point to an Ohio State blowout. Stats, the injury report, the talent composition of these two rosters. I like Ohio State 42-17. I think it's going to be a big night for TreVeyon Henderson. If we look at what Illinois did on the ground against Penn State. Penn State's shorthanded in the middle, as I've mentioned, right? They're down that defensive tackle who's been very, very big for them this year. So Ohio State in this one, 42-17, and they continue to roll. And
nice.
I
just checked out the weather for Columbus Saturday night.
That's
it's going to rain most of the day, and then Saturday night it's going to drop down to about 37, like around game time.
Okay.
And it's only about 20% chance of rain. Winds 5 to 10 miles per hour.
All right. Okay. So pretty good conditions for a Big Ten football game.
That's all right. Yeah.
Right. In late October.
You heard it here first from Al Roker from Cleveland.
All right. Okay.
Sponsored by weather.com.
Well, hey,
sponsor, weather.com.
Well, listen, if I can keep you guys on for a little bit longer, I wanted to turn our attention to a few other matchups around the Big Ten. Let's turn to number 6 Michigan visiting number 8 Michigan State. This is in East Lansing. This game is a noon Eastern kick on Fox. The line is Michigan -4. The over-under is 50.5. Who do you guys like in that game? Paige, I want to start with you.
So I said it 2 weeks ago. I think Michigan State's going to be our toughest test. I don't believe in Michigan's greatly improved. Yeah, that's not that tall of a hurdle, right? Like big deal, right? You got better. You sucked for a long time.
Right.
I have, again, in full disclosure, not seen a single snap from the Spartans. So, I'm just going off of pure, speculation on that. I did watch a teeny bit of Michigan Northwestern. Correct me if I'm wrong. That was 17-10 or something, 13-10 at halftime.
10-7 at half, Michigan.
10-7 at halftime, right?
Yeah.
Just offensive juggernaut, Michigan, please. Right? Like, just stop. They're one-dimensional on offense. I think, the one thing Michigan State has some players, and I think Michigan gets exposed. I like Sparty in that game.
Wow.
Sure. Okay.
Did you happen to, if you were watching that Michigan Northwestern game, I don't know if you saw a little bit of that halftime show, Brady Quinn was giving Harbaugh all kinds of grief about not throwing the football. He's like, he's like all the analysts have been saying, Michigan just really has to show that they can throw the ball downfield, be a threat to throw the ball downfield to hang with the likes of Ohio State and other elite teams. But I think Quinn said something like, he's like, throw the ball downfield. I just want them to attempt to pass past the line of scrimmage, because they're throwing a lot of bubble screens and, short passes and stuff. So before you settle on that pick, Paige, before I let you go and I kick it over to Chet, I just do want to point out that Michigan State, really probably should have lost to the Indiana team that we just demolished, right? Indiana held
it, so it didn't happen.
That Indiana team held Michigan State to 241 yards of total offense. The difference in that game was a pick 6 for Michigan State. They hung on to win. But you like Sparty in a rivalry game. They do always get up for Michigan, right? They always play Michigan well, even when they're not all that good. So you're taking Michigan in that game. How about you, Chad?
Well, the line is Michigan -4 in East Lansing.
Yeah.
And like I said, a couple minutes ago, I mean, college football is wacky this year. I'm going to take I'm going to take Michigan State, man. I think they knock off Michigan. And as much as I don't want that to happen, because not many people agree with me, but I want Michigan to be undefeated when we go up to Ann Arbor. So I don't want them to lose on Saturday, but I think they're going to.
Wow. Okay. I'm taking Michigan. Michigan State, I watched most of the Michigan State Indiana game 2 weeks ago before we played Indiana. And, Indiana shut them down. They shut down Kenneth Walker III, their star tailback. They really took away about pretty, what up to that game was a pretty good receiver core at Michigan State. They got a couple receivers who before that game were putting up some pretty good stats. Jalen Naylor is a good receiver for them, but I think Michigan's going to get this one. I like them in this one. I think they have just a little bit more than Michigan State. I think they've shown a little bit more than Michigan State. Michigan State really hasn't played anybody. As you guys know, I've been probably Michigan's biggest critic out of all of us on this pod, but I do like them in this game over Michigan State, by a touchdown.
What's Michigan State ranked right now?
So right now, Michigan State is ranked 8th and Michigan is 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is old Jimmy Khaki Pants' record against top 10 teams?
Not great. Not great. I don't know. That's a good point. Not great. I don't have the numbers here in front of me, but it's pretty putrid.
It's 2-10.
Yeah, against Ohio State,
maybe?
Michigan State, the two biggest rivals. It's shit.
Yeah, that's true. He has been bad in rivalry games too. On top of that, so Paige, it's your old line of you're sticking with the trend until you see something different. Is that kind of your view of this one?
Yeah, the part of it, I think, and again, I don't think either one of those teams are really very good. Certainly not top 10. I mean, maybe in a normal college football season, it is weird. Somebody's got to be in the top 10. But from what I've seen, I couldn't tell you, legitimately who are good top 10 teams out there. I mean, so many teams are flawed in so many ways.
Yeah, you're right.
So I just, I think Michigan State gets it done. And to Chad's point, right? Like I would love it for Michigan to be undefeated when we went up there, but we get Michigan State. It'd be good if they're undefeated. And then if Michigan is 11-1 and we go up there and boat race them, that works as well.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think by the time the Big Ten East is done with each other, I'm not sure any of these opponents Ohio State plays and hopefully defeats and wins convincingly are going to, provide great resume fodder for their playoff resume. I think in the end, I totally expect by the end of the season, we'll look back on some of these opponents with inflated rankings and say, yeah, Michigan State, and they were solid, but I mean, top 10 team, I don't know. Right. Okay. It's going to be a fun game either way. That's a 9:00 kick. Great way to get Saturday started. There's another pretty interesting matchup in the Big Ten. In the West, number 9 Iowa visits unranked Wisconsin. This is also a noon Eastern kick on ESPN. The line is Wisconsin -3.5. The over-under is 36.5. Oh my God, this game's going to be a cure for insomnia. Yeah, barn burner. But don't look now, but Wisconsin is very much alive in the division, and they're the favorite in this game. I mean, man, the more things change, the more things stay the same in the Big Ten West. I mean, how much you want to bet Wisconsin ends up winning that damn thing again and gets out of the West, right? I mean, they went on the road last week and throttled Purdue, who had come off the big win over Iowa. I personally
Do they really want to face us again in Indy, man?
Yeah, I mean, hey, honestly, the last time we played them, they had a similar team. They were better than this team, but they know how to slow us down. Like we usually don't run away. That 59-0 win back in the 2014 Big Ten title game was a total outlier. Usually they play us fairly close, but I don't know. I mean, I think we were all expecting somebody different. So Iowa, right? 2 weeks ago, we're like, oh, it's an Iowa. They're a lock. But I mean, I don't know. I'll get us started. I think Wisconsin wins this one. I was not impressed with Iowa, losing at home against Purdue 2 weeks ago. They really should have lost to Penn State. They should have been blown out by Penn State. If Sean Clifford doesn't go down in that game, I think they actually get their asses handed to them by Penn State. So I like Wisconsin in this game. Chad, how about you?
I mean, I'll tell you, if I have to actually pick these two, like
You do. You are forced to make a pick, sir.
Teams. I guess I'll take. I'm going to go with the. I'll flip a coin. Heads, Iowa. Tails, Wisconsin. Tails, Wisconsin.
Just ask Johnny.
Tails, Wisconsin.
Ask Johnny. 1 bark for Iowa, 2 barks for Wisconsin.
So the coin flip is tails for Wisconsin. You're taking Wisconsin. Boy, that is podcasting gold right there, boys. Okay. Paige, how about you, man? Who do you like in this game?
I mean, I don't even care. It's an embarrassment to football watching these teams play. It's just not. And I'm going to use my time on the podcast is to please, like redo the East versus West thing, right?
Yeah.
It's just
or just get rid of the divisions altogether.
Just get rid of it. Do something, right? Yeah. I mean, it's just they're the same teams year over. Horrible offenses. They cannot throw the ball past 10 yards. I mean, literally, I can go to a high school game tomorrow in Colorado, which is the worst high school football in the country, and they have better quarterbacks than these schools. I don't know how that's possible. So I'd be rooting for Iowa. I don't want to see – I'm tired of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So let's just go for the Hawkeyes.
You're taking Iowa just because you just can't bear to see Wisconsin in the Big Ten title game again. I got no problem with that. I got no problem with that pick, because I feel the same way. And in fact, just as we were saying, the last time all of us talked on this podcast, we talked about how unfortunate it is Ohio State has not gotten a lot of cracks at Iowa since, since the realignment of the divisions and since they added, Maryland and since expansion, right? Maryland and Rutgers and stuff. We're seeing those games instead of Iowa. Iowa usually plays is pretty tough. I think that would make a more compelling Big Ten title game if it happens. There's one other game I'm going to keep an eye on before we get to our gun to our head playoff predictions. One game I'm keeping an eye on. That's Texas Tech at number 4, Oklahoma. Man, Oklahoma looked shaky last week against Kansas. Probably should have lost that damn game against Kansas.
They're hanging on by a thread.
1-6 Kansas. What in the hell? So I'm watching. That's Texas Tech at number 4, Oklahoma. Texas Tech not very good, but we know they can score. And I would not be surprised if Texas Tech takes that Oklahoma down to the wire, and that's anybody's ball game in the last couple minutes of that game.
Take this to the bank, boys and girls.
All right.
Florida is a 14-point underdog to Georgia at 3:30 on Saturday. That game is going to go down to the very end of the fourth quarter. Florida will lose, but they will cover the 14, and it's going to be a scare for the Dogs.
Okay. All right. I like that one. Yeah. A rivalry game, neutral field, right? That game's played in Jacksonville. Is Mike Corcoran going to be there?
Yep. He is.
Mikey. He probably doesn't even know where the stadium is.
All right. Well, before we head to predictions, Paige, any comments you want to make on that Oklahoma Texas Tech game or Florida?
But didn't
Georgia?
They just fire their head coach?
Texas Tech?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I think they did, didn't they?
Yeah.
All right. So,
yeah, like that guy. A lot of people like that guy, and some big donor put in like 20, like some insane amount, like, and they're like, I listened to when he said, Paige, I listened to the press conference. He was like, we just thought today was the day to go. We want to thank him for his time and his energy. Matt Barnes is who it was, right?
Is that the name of the coach? Yeah, not our Matt Barnes, obviously.
I have no idea. I just saw that.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Coach.
Got it. Interesting.
I mean, the guy's got like they're 5-6-3 or 5-3, and like they're just like crazy.
Interesting. Okay, so the Red Raiders, win one for the old coach who got the hatchet.
You never know. I think Oklahoma loses, but I don't think it's this week. I think it's down the road when they play Baylor or Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I think now, if I'm not mistaken, Oklahoma still has on their schedule, they still have both Iowa State and Oklahoma State, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they do. Actually, yeah, they wrap up with those three in succession, starting with Baylor, Paige.
Yeah,
that's right. At Baylor. Then they come home and face Iowa State and then on the road at Oklahoma State. So, yeah, I'm with you. I don't think they survived that gauntlet. They might even lose more than one game there through that gauntlet. Okay.
Does the Big 12 have a championship game now?
Yeah, they do. They do, because we've been seeing a lot of rematches in that game, because they play a round robin, right? They only have 10
Yeah, and that's why I thought they didn't have a championship game.
Yeah, actually they do. They do. And, Oklahoma, right. So assuming they survive this 3-game gauntlet at the end, Baylor, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and then they'd have to win in the Big 12 championship game too. I don't see them doing that. They're just playing with fire. They're flirting with disaster. That's going to catch up to them. Their defense is going to catch up to them.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
isn't it funny their quarterback, that Spencer Ratliff, was the Heisman favorite at the beginning of the season, and now he's riding the bench.
Pretty crazy. Yeah. Well, I tell you, before last week, Caleb Williams looked like a world beater. He had a clunker of a game last week. Curiously, couldn't really do anything. He was much better in the second half of that game, but he did have maybe the play of the season. I don't know if you guys saw this,
I know what you're going to say.
That was crazy. That was crazy. It was a 4th down and 1, and Oklahoma is clinging, I think, to a 28-23 lead. And Kennedy Brooks, their tailback, gets stuffed. He was going to lose 2 yards, and Caleb Williams yanks the ball from Brooks' hands and pushes it over the first down marker to get the first down. They end up scoring on the drive to push the lead out and ended up hanging on. But that was a crazy heads-up play, really smart play.
That's right. Williams. That's like someone that knows the game very well.
Yeah, smart.
Because not right.
Yeah, smart and a lot of ability. But I don't know, man. The defensive woes just continue to dog that program. I don't know why they can't get defense figured out at Oklahoma. I just don't. They seem to recruit very well. It's one of the premier programs. I don't understand why they can't play decent defense there, and I think that's going to catch up to them.
They play amazing offense, right? Like so many teams can't play offense. Oklahoma does it exceptionally well. Just be proficient on defense.
Yeah.
They would be a handful, and they just can't do it. So.
They can't do it, yeah. All right, boys, let's turn to our gun to your head playoff predictions. Chad, I'm going to start with you. Give me your top 4.
Oh, man. Buckeyes. I hate to throw Alabama in there, but God, I mean.
Now, is it going to be in that order? Give me 1 through 4.
Oh, hey now, dude. You're asking a lot now.
You can do it.
All right. So,
you do nothing other than watch college football.
I think, oh God, let's see.
All right, come to me.
I think Georgia will be 1.
Okay.
Georgia will be 1.
All right.
I think Ohio State will be 2.
Okay.
Let's see.
And actually, this is just your personal top 4. You don't have to predict where they're actually going to land. Just your top 4 teams.
Oh, okay.
If the season ended today,
my anxiety levels were all starting to peak, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go and take a Xanax.
Oh yeah, no. There's not that much at stake here on this. Not that much riding on this, CP. So you like Georgia 1, Ohio State 2,
Alabama, and who else can you throw in there, man? Because I think Oklahoma's going to lose. So
yeah, I think that's the tough one. The 4 spot's always the tough one.
Yeah.
You want to think about it? I can go to Paige and come back.
Help me out there, boys, because I really I can't think right now. All
right.
All
right. Well, why don't you think about it? I'll go to Paige. Paige, who's your top 4?
So I'm actually even going to take it a step further. I've actually looked it up, and I'm going to tell you who's going to be in the playoff right now.
All right, let's hear it. I love it.
And I'll put a C note on it.
Woo!
Wow! I like
all right.
That,
okay, man. Love it.
Georgia.
I like it.
Ohio State 2.
All right.
Cincy 3. Oregon 4.
Wow. Okay. So you don't think Cincy's schedule is going to catch up to him?
I'm looking at the top 25. There's nobody more worthy than Cincy. Go look at it.
Right.
Because you've got Michigan State and Michigan. They've got to play Ohio State. The only fly in the ointment is Oklahoma. If they run the table, they're in. And then Cincinnati's out. But if Oklahoma stumbles, then Cincy's going to get in. And I don't think Alabama's that good. I think Georgia's better. So you got Georgia, us. I think Oregon's probably going to run the table, and then you have to put Cincy in.
Wow. Okay.
In your scenario, Paige, that would be the most amazing thing in the world, because we'd be a 2 seed and the Ducks would be a 4 seed, and we would fucking roll them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or for sure. Because Cincy will get in as the 4 slot for sure.
Interesting. So we'd open with Oregon. Okay. So you've got Georgia.
Georgia has 1. Yep.
Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Cincy. Is that your order? 1 through 4?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to reverse Cincy. So Cincy's the 4 spot and the Ducks are the 3. So it's 2-3 Ohio State, Buckeyes, and then Georgia versus Cincy.
Okay.
And candidly, I think that they might be the 4 best teams. I mean, look at it. Notre Dame, Kentucky, again, you got Bama in there, but they're going to be sitting there with 2 losses.
Yeah.
I think once they, play Georgia in the championship game, and they could lose before that, by the way.
Yeah, they could lose at Auburn to end the season. I mean, they've been vulnerable. I mean, Tennessee took them down. Well, I don't want to say they took them down to the wire. They ended up pulling away, I think, scoring 21 unanswered.
Yeah, that game was a lot closer than it was.
But it was a lot closer, right? That was a 7-point game in the fourth quarter. So, okay. Look, gun to my head, if the season ended today and I had to pick 4, I've got Georgia, who's looked very good, certainly not unbeatable, but I'm going to give them credit for being the most consistent, the most balanced team so far. But right on their heels, I got Ohio State. I think Ohio State is actually playing better football right now than Georgia. And the Pro Football Focus grades show that. The team grades, I've mentioned this on the previous pod. Right now, they have Georgia number 1 in their overall team grades. They have Ohio State number 2 right behind them. Look, I'm gonna put Bama in at number 3. It's Nick Saban gets the benefit of the doubt from me until the Tide loses again. I don't have a ton of conviction with that pick. And then at number 4, man, I can't believe I'm saying this. Michigan at number 4.
Whoa!
I'm just going to put them there. If we're gonna, we just don't. Oklahoma doesn't deserve to be there. I don't believe in Cincinnati. I don't believe in Cincinnati. I was at that game 2 years ago. I know I've said this. When Ohio State, pulled off their legs and arms and beat them with them 42-0. Cincinnati did not belong on the field with Ohio State. And I just can't get that out of my head. Oklahoma, I had them at number 4 in the last pod in my playoff 4, but I'm going to throw Michigan in there. And I think if we're at that 4th spot, I'm going to go most deserving, I guess. I think Michigan's going to win out. Let's say they lose a competitive game to Ohio State, in Ann Arbor. You got teams ahead of them faltering, like Bama losing a second game, Oklahoma not looking impressive. I don't think Oregon is the Oklahoma of the West, right? They're week in and week out, they're playing with fire. I think there's a really good chance they lose again. I don't think Cincy's going to have the schedule. So, hey, Michigan, you keep it relatively close in the finale. You're 11-1. Ohio State goes on to win the the Big Ten championship. Your only loss is to another playoff team. Michigan gets in at number 4. Why not? Which that's saying a lot for me because you guys know how critical I've been of Michigan on this podcast.
That's just an indictment of the rest.
Is this 2008 over again?
Yeah.
So yeah, right. So I don't. Again, not a ton of conviction with my last 3 picks, Bama or Michigan. It would seem, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, Georgia and Ohio State seem to be on a collision course. I mean, who doesn't want to see that Georgia defense against the Ohio State offense? I mean, I think that's the matchup a lot of people want to see, even people outside of those fan bases.
It'd be amazing.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think Georgia could be had too. I mean, all respect to the way they've recruited. They're actually more talented than Ohio State if you look at the 24/7 team talent composites. But, I don't know. I think we could beat that team. In Indianapolis, by the way. The national championship game is in Lucas Oil Stadium. That's the other thing.
You know what? I know you go back to that, like to 2 years ago with Cincy, but I think they're like a totally different, like that's 2 years is fickle. I think they're legit, man, but we'll see, I guess.
And by the way, I agree with you, CP. They beat Navy by 7 points last weekend.
Yeah. Well, Navy down 7 recovered an onside kick. And since he had to stop him from tying the game, but Navy's weird. Navy's weird. I mean, I would never schedule Navy in the middle of a season, right? Navy's taking us down to the wire, right? I mean, I remember 2009.
It is Navy. Come on, it is Navy.
It is Navy. Yeah, they're a weird opponent, but no, I think they're good. I think they're solid. I don't know. I'm just not buying them, but maybe they can prove me wrong.
I have one last question.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Gun to your head, is Ohio State the best team in the country right now?
Oh, I think so. I think they're playing better than Georgia right now. Yeah, sure. I'll take that. I would take Ohio State over Georgia right now. How about you, PBH? What do you think?
Of course. Yeah, I think so. I mean, and I think, Georgia gets a hell of a lot of credit for beating Clemson in the first game of the season. They're
Clemson stinks. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'll take that. And CP, you would agree? You'd think Ohio State's the best team in the country right now?
I think they are. And again,
then why were we all too chicken to put them number one in our rankings?
Because Georgia's going to win out. They're going to be one.
Yeah, that's true. They're going to be undefeated. You're right. Sorry, CP, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I want to believe that, and I believe we're really close. I wish we could see against a good offensive team, but I mean, Georgia really doesn't impress me whatsoever on the offensive side of the ball. So, I mean, based on that, I would say yes.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to have to wait for that matchup with another elite offense to really test our defense, because I just don't think it exists on their remaining schedule, and they're certainly not going to get that in the Big Ten championship game, whoever comes out of the West. All right, fellas. Hey, thanks so much for making the time. It's great to be with you. I know it's been a couple of weeks. Let's try to make some time to do this again next week. What do you say?
Good effort, boys.
I think it's great, Z. Hey, man, as always, thanks for hosting, brother. PBH, boys keep the dream alive. Looking forward to seeing those unis and the lights.
All right. Okay, boys, have a great night. I'll see you next week. You've been listening to the South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and visit our website at southstandsosu.com.